The devs listen! Oh my god, these are the best devs ever! Genshin could never? Y'all gotta change it to Hoyo could never, cause it's the truth! Alright, got that out of my system. Let's be honest here. It's been a rocky road for Wuthering Waves, coming from a not-so-clean launch of 1.0 to the amazing 1.1 update which fixed like a decent amount of foundational issues, to the 1.2 update which slowed down everything to a snail's pace through a filler patch that sought to fix a vast majority of issues behind the game, and now we're here in 1.3. Curl really had to show us what they're made of in this version. I mean, let's be honest, a lot of us were waiting for this patch for a long time since the drip marketing of the Shorekeeper way back in 1.1, so they better deliver. That said, I hope everyone is especially happy that the Shorekeeper is now out, so that they can snag her and replace this child in their party. I mean, even the devs want to bin this little thing. Wait. Hold up. Camelia's in the next patch? Do I skip or do I whip out the card for Camellia? Huh? What's this? She looks familiar. Is that Saya from Blue Archive? Oh no. Well, it's been a good run, y'all. Looks like I'm quitting Wuthering Waves. I don't want to experience having a rat in my rolls once again. I have enough rats or mice or what have you for one life. Maybe I should try out some other game like Zenless Zone Zero. What's it like over there?
Is that so? Why don't you tell me more?
I'ma stick to PGR. Did anyone say Black Rock Shooter collab? Wuwa could never. Going back to Wuwa, can we talk about that reveal trailer? That was peak. It almost felt like a relaunch trailer, but oh my god, it was amazing. This, to me, was the essence of what makes Wuthering Waves what it is. I mean, I felt more hyped about this version update than the launch of Wuthering Waves, which is crazy to think about. But let's look beyond that. Did the 1.3 story deliver? Here's the thing. When it comes to their story writing, I believe that Kuro's strength lies in their character-driven stories more so than their plot-driven stories. It makes sense considering that in PGR, it must be character-driven as each chapter highlights the journey of a specific character that is core to the update. But, when there are cases when the plot is the main driver of the story, it's either hit or miss. So, with that in mind, for Wuwa's 1.3 story, I think the story is okay, but it's nowhere near a masterpiece. It's certainly better than the slop that we got in 1.0, but that's a low bar. Instead, I would say that I don't think it's as good as 1.1. When thinking back on this story, a lot of it really has me feeling conflicted. On one side, I see the vision. On the other, it's a little frustrating as there are some oddities in the pacing and the content that exists from within the story. Take the beginning of the quest where you run into Yang Yang and Yohu. First, I will say that the existence of this waste of space is honestly unnecessary.
Rover, you're finally here.
Wow, you're a ball of emotion, aren't you?
Yes. I remember you mentioned wanting to learn more about your past ties to the Black Shores. The battle in Norfolk Barrens is over, and the Black Shores should be withdrawing. But they've asked the Midnight Rangers to monitor the area around the port city of Guizhou. I thought this might be your chance to gather more information about them.
Can I get a different girlfriend? Yeah, she lowered my hype for the Black Shores just a smidge. Could do without her, honestly. But let's talk about this for a second. The Black Shores is a secret organization that isn't necessarily easy to find as expressed in 1.0, and here we get a convenient notion that they're here because of the events that happened at the end of 1.0, which was quite a while ago. Basically because the plot demands it. But on top of that, Yohu also has a lead to find them, with this feeling that we're about to embark on an adventure to find the Black Shores through these convenient plot points.
Since we're on the same trail, how about teaming up? Let this master be your guide. You and me, dream team. Nothing's gonna slow us down. Not to boast, but epic adventures tend to have a way of finding me.
Turns out, they're literally around the corner just like that. Next thing you know, we're just thrust into helping Nia with her problem, only to be confronted with Hoda and the Tethys system, which then leads to us getting attacked by the Tethys system, and then we get teleported by the Shorekeeper. Talk about speedrunning and adventure. A part of me felt like a 5-year-old telling a sequence of events that just happened one after another just cuz. And that's what this whole beginning sequence felt like. It was like, and then this happened, and then that happened, and then this has happened, and now we're here. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. It just felt so weirdly paced for the most part. Now, maybe you're cool with that and want to go to the Black Shores immediately, and sure, I pondered about that, and I thought that this could absolutely be fixed in that regard, because as it stands, Yang Yang being there remains to be a waste of space, and Yohu literally existed with that trinket for a small amount of time, as if to say, hey, we got a new 4-star you can try, and then dip. It's less immersive from a story standpoint and way too video gamey. At that point, I'll take an intro where a Black Shores member contacts us and takes us there. They are watching us after all. Or randomly, the Tethys system confronts us out of nowhere and we get bailed out by the shorekeeper, just like that. That would make for a better beginning if you want to have a quick entrance to the Black Shores without the unnecessary characters. Though, if we took the opposite approach and took our time with the story, the way I would have imagined it is if they made Yohu an actual character, and we went on an adventure starting at Mount Firmament where she finds the Black Shores device, which will then lead us to the port of Guishu. This will give Yohu enough time to flesh out her character through interactions, and at least have some semblance of an initial adventure. But that's just me. Though if you feel similar or dissimilar about it, please put it down in the comments as to why, because I'm curious about how people felt about this. Oh, and be sure to like and subscribe for more discussions like this. Anyway, aside from the beginning, I feel like the whole story was paced rather awkwardly, whether it be the way the plot was being conveyed to you or how the events of the story moved along and were being pieced together. It comes off as confusing even though it really isn't. I will say that this sort of changes when we make it to the shorekeeper sections, and the story dramatically improves from there. We get more out of the plot through the shorekeeper telling you half-truths and expositing the situation at hand through her perspective. It gives the lore more depth while showing off shorekeeper's personality and her struggles. After all, she has a deep connection to the plot itself. What's not only an improvement, but is also simply incredible are the action set pieces and the cutscenes. I also have to highlight that the voice acting is leagues better than it ever was before, with the exception of one. I'm just glad that they finally allowed their VAs to use their natural accents than try to hide it and sound more awkward and at times robotic. But gosh darn, on the JP side, Minami Tanaka is just absolutely amazing as Rover in this chapter.
この曲、どこかで聞いた気がする。あなたが教えてくれたの。そう、ごめんね。思い出せなくて。
Normally I'm used to hearing her speak like Alice from Blue Archive or Nanami from PGR, but man, this reminds me that she has range.
Hello, hello. This is Nanami speaking. 指揮官、聞こえてる？もしこれが未来からのメッセージだったら、びっくりするかな？
But yeah, the cutscenes, the action set pieces, and the voice acting. This is Kuro at their best, and we certainly want to see more of it. It's just so epic and of very high quality. Although, one of my cutscenes sort of bugged out. You know, some things just never work out. That said, when we take a step back and look at the story through its tone and what it's trying to convey, we find that it is reminiscent to that of Nier Automata, or better yet, PGR. At least that's the direction we're getting the feel for. And you know what? That's a fantastic direction to head towards. After all, Kuro are fans of Nier. Why not capitalize on that like they did in PGR? In a way, this is the groundwork that Wuthering Waves has always needed in order to craft their own identity. We don't need a Genshin Impact 2. We need a PGR 2. Wait. Overall, the story has a lot of improvements through its characterization and world building. Not to mention, it's filled with a good number of memorable moments. Though, I can't let that distract me from some of the pacing and plot issues that I've had. Like, immediately after the shorekeeper gets sacrificed, we're like, alright, cutscene done, chop chop, we have a shorekeeper to save. We didn't even have time to let what happened earlier sink in. And when you think about the resolution of the plot, what did we actually do? The Tethys system needs a core capable of feeling emotion, and if neither the shorekeeper nor you become it, what happens?
That won't be a problem. Tethys and the Black Shores will find another way.
What? That's it?
After being fixed, it's executing the master command given at its creation. The core computational unit has now been replaced by a special frequency that shares similar properties as the lament. But this one is more harmonious and mild.
Okay, so that's your solution? So we went through all of that stuff just to end with this? You know, if you think about it, it almost feels like we're IT support coming in to fix a supercomputer with the most powerful move that has ever been used. No, you. But yeah, it's a little frustrating to think about because I know they can write compelling stories with compelling characters. But sometimes when we get to the plot-driven sections, some of the plot points are either weird or oversaturated with jargon, and at times a bit messy through its pacing. Would that take away from your experience? Maybe, maybe not. Again, there's a ton of improvements like the tone, the music, the action set pieces, and cutscenes. They've even expanded the lore of Wuba, and they are continuing to make Rover more of a character than a self-insert pro tag. All of this is a step in the right direction, but it still needs some work. I still stand by the belief that the 1.1 story is the best balance in pacing, exposition, and characterization they've done in the game. To me, that's the bar that has been set, and I don't think 1.3 has surpassed it. But I do think it's worth mentioning that 1.3 allowed us to see a clear vision over where Kuro wants to take their story, and when thinking about that, it's exciting to see what they'll do next. Since the launch of Wuthering Waves, it felt like Kuro was waffling a little with their environmental design. The clash of classic fantasy and sci-fi worked to a certain extent, but it was eerily empty, or at least it felt like something was missing. To me, I felt like it was lacking in character. It was until 1.1 where they started making moves to improve these areas by really having a clear focus in their themes. And now, 1.3 has come in, taking that direction a step further and really showing us what the future of Wuthering Waves could actually look like. In 1.3, we of course get the Black Shores, and here it appears they want to double down on the sci-fi aspect and have a small hint of some classic fantasy expressing the dynamics of human ingenuity within an alien world. The somewhat muted colors that plagued 1.0 still exist, but now feels much more deliberate, highlighting the sterility of the futuristic advancements of humanity and using that to contrast the environment surrounding it. So here's the thing, the surface of the Black Shores honestly looks dead without the punishing virus ravaging the area. But I also think that when looking at the Black Shores in broad daylight, it doesn't seem to do the area some justice because when the light dims, the contrast from the glowing lights against the cold architecture of the future gives it that unique feel of being in a different world. Not to mention that skybox. However, upon closer inspection, you might find that the buildings of the Black Shores are not that interesting aside from the main building with the glass house on top. To be honest, I was a bit let down because I didn't feel the magic of coming onto a new location in the same way that I felt entering Mount Firmament. Though, that's just on the surface of the Black Shores. The same cannot be said about Tethys Deep. Tethys Deep is the true heart of what the Black Shores is, and it is a significant improvement over what you'd find on the surface. This is helped by a very beautiful skybox that is littered with unique looking constellations. Oh, and who can forget that giant glowing water cooler looking centerpiece serving as a massive landmark? This eternal night serving as the backdrop to the land enhances the feel of the area. That and there are some small notable areas that adds character to the environment, whether it be the unique technological spaces or the Aetherfin caves. Unfortunately, Tethys Deep is pretty small, but what matters isn't just the size or looks, it's also what inhabits it. And tell you what, the inhabitants, the exploration through puzzles, and the side quests do enhance the vibe of the area further. You see, when it comes to an open world game, very unique looking landmarks do encourage exploration, but it's not the only form of motivation. It's also about how fun and interesting the puzzles or other pieces of content in the area are. Oh, and of course it's a gacha game, so rewards are also what pushes players to explore. I mean, we have these little events where you get rewards for just exploring. That said, there are some interesting pieces of content you can tackle, like Yoren's tactical challenges and leveling the Tethys Hub, which unlocks unique tacit discourse that you can find in the Black Shores. It's an intriguing way to encourage exploration and progression to completing the island. Speaking of which, when it comes to exploring, we have some portals here and there for traversal, not to mention some surfing. It reminds me of how they try to keep a theme within a region, like how in Mount Firmament, their puzzles revolve around time mechanics. Aside from the stuff you can do, you can find some neat details among those who inhabit the Black Shores. It's just nice to see. But more importantly, they put in the Kuro robots, which to me is the biggest highlight. Hey, can't resist a good PGR reference here and there. The direction of the Black Shores is quite interesting as it is a small area, though if I'm being honest, I expected a little bit more, at least on the scale of Mount Firmament, but perhaps that's what it should be. An organization tucked away on a massive Tacitite. Overall, the Black Shores is quite a good looking location. I mean, look at that water. As much as there are areas that make you go meh, there are some places that you might find yourself wanting to get a screenshot in. Speaking of which, please give us free cam and no HUD. It's a small thing, I know, but it would be so sick. So when it comes to Kuro's generosity, even when you expect that they're going to be generous, they shock you by being even more generous, which is kind of nuts. We get a ton of events, not to mention Black Shores related events where all you need to do is play the game, explore the Black Shores, and boom, you get a ton of good rewards. Hey, Shorekeeper may have hit your asteroids hard, but never fear, Kuro is here. But here's something worth highlighting, the Wuthering Exploration event. Yep. This one doesn't even give asteroids, but the reason why this one is worth highlighting is because man, Wuthering Waves dumps you in a state of poverty when it comes to building your characters. Now, this situation can be attributed to the number of rewards we're getting from our usual tacit fields, forgery challenges, and simulation training, but that's a conversation for another time. Either way, this Wuthering Exploration event is a blessing for us all, as they reward us with a ton of credits, not to mention the highest rarity materials for our Forte upgrades. I'm pretty sure we're still gonna feel poor after this, but hey, this is still a huge boon for us all. The other event I want to highlight is the co-op event. This event is where you can matchmake with other players and take on the world bosses you know and love and kill them. Easy peasy, right? Well, when you get to the challenge modes, things are a little different. These bosses feel as hard as holograms even though you have 3 people simultaneously wailing on them. But here's the thing, by nature of this co-op, intro and outro skills operate differently, and there's some benefit in having someone play a supporting role instead of all 3 players being main DPS, though it's still viable. Hey, all is good if someone on your team is running a whale version of Jinsei or Gion, right? But if they're not, either lock in and fight like your life depended on it or die lamenting that your teammates suck. Sounds like a typical multiplayer experience, right? Exactly. This is something that Kuro should be going for as a multiplayer experience. And personally, I think that this co-op mode is pretty fun. It has a ton of potential, and by the looks of it, this game mode looks like it's in the prototype stage of something that could be reminiscent of that of Monster Hunter. This reminded me of that one time in PGR where they tested the waters with something like this. Anyway, going back to Wuba Co-op, it has some interesting mechanics like modifiers to boss encounters and echoids that serve as equipment to make this experience feel slightly unique, but there is a small issue when it comes to this mode. The bosses still feel tied to the single player's experience. Now, this makes sense as there is a single player option because not everyone is down for a multiplayer experience, but for the co-op option, there should be a separate experience that is designed for multiple people being there all at once. Because as it stands right now, you're probably looking at someone who is tanking the boss aggro while everyone else is wailing on it, and it really feels like a hologram fight but with multiple people. Perhaps we could do with something like raid mechanics or unique movesets that cater to the experience of fighting a boss with multiple people in the area. That aside, this is a very promising debut of something that could be so much more, and I really hope they do expand on it and turn it into something that could be amazing as an endgame in the future. When I think about version 1.3, I feel a little frustrated. There are some pretty good moments, but at the same time, there is something creeping in the back of my mind where I think that it's not as good as I'd hope it'd be. And then, there's that part of me that's trying to convince myself maybe it's not as bad as I think. I mean, when you look at 1.3, they made many improvements in the game. QOL changes, additional optimizations, the direction of the story, and even the music. No one doubts that Kuro is trying to do their best for their players. I mean, That has always been their bottom line. The reason why I might sound harsh in this video is because I've seen peak Kuro before in PGR, and the experiences I've had with PGR is something I want to share with everyone. However, it's not so simple as to recommend people to play PGR. I mean, I've been doing that. But the thing is that PGR is a 2019 game, and it's kind of showing its age. On top of that, I am well aware that not everyone can vibe with the visual novel style of storytelling. So I'm placing all of my hopes in Wuthering Waves, hoping we could get the same energy we had from their previous title. Anyway, looking back at the Black Shores as a whole, I've thought about where my feelings of dissatisfaction comes from. And I realized it's not necessarily dissatisfaction, it's a feeling that is rooted in thinking that something more could be done. A part of me feels that Kuro might be holding back when it comes to their design, story and all. It's almost as if they're exercising some form of restraint. It's like taking the conservative design of their characters and spreading that design philosophy towards the entire game, especially with the Black Shores. Perhaps it was intentional. After all, I'm sure no one wants to see something akin to how Hoyo designs anything. Like, most of the time it looks like color vomit. And I'm pretty sure someone has an allergy to symmetry in their studio. But yeah, when I look at Wuthering Waves, a part of me feels like their design is too conservative. Like, I'm sure they can do a little bit more with their designs. I mean, look at PGR's latest character in CN. The long-awaited Ishmael is finally playable. Look at her, she looks so good. Seriously, Shorekeeper could never. But it's not only that. This feeling is also influenced by the fact that I've seen some Neverness to Everness clips, and I felt that their designs hit that sweet spot between minimalist and maximalist design. But maybe what I really want is simply more of what I already see. I want to see more of the alien-looking areas littered around the Black Shores counteracting the mutant sterile facilities that are placed upon it. I want to see more of the corruption in the Tethys system, maybe more complex portal puzzles, maybe more surfing. I just want to see more. There's a lot of things that Kuro did right, but at the same time, I feel like they could do more. It's almost as if we're constantly being teased by being fed sample plate after sample plate, but I'm still waiting on the entree. Much like when we saw what the port city of Guizhou was like during its golden days. Maybe one day Kuro will give us a giant bustling metropolis filled with a lot of life and color for us to explore. Maybe one day Kuro will give us a story that has an ending that sticks with us and haunts us beyond finishing an arc, much like PGR. There's so many maybes that I could imagine, but for now, like always, we're just going to have to wait and see. At the end of the day, version 1.3 showed us the direction they are heading towards, and it's filled with a lot of promise, but they still have a lot of work to do. Kuro has made tons of improvements to the game since its launch, and I'm sure they will continue to do so. It's just what they do. Like heck, the biggest highlight in terms of improvement was the music. I mean, sound is the most important component of Wuthering Waves. It's just that, coming from PGR, Vanguard Sound Studio really set the bar super high. It made Wuwa's bass music sound like trash. And you know what? I think that the in-house made music has improved so much, I don't think we need Vanguard Sound Studio anymore. The Shorekeeper's theme is so good, it may as well replace the music you hear in the lobby before you enter the game. And the theme you hear in Tethys Deep is so near-coded, everyone at this point caught on to it. It's just so sublime. I'm glad Kuro is also highlighting it on their official channel. It deserves some kind of recognition. So yeah, in terms of music, I'm sure Wuthering Waves will be alright now. Who am I kidding? I still think it'd be sick to hear Vanguard make something for Wuba. I mean, they got Adam Gutman to make a song for Wuba, so next step, let's hear some Vanguard music.